In this video, we're going to take a look at how AI can be used to add VFX to your real footage, much like in this viral video. So not only are the campfire and the mountains and the building fake, but this entire horse doesn't exist either. But it does look pretty convincing, making this an awesome hybrid workflow for indie filmmakers looking to get an incredible bang for their buck. But actually, this tutorial won't be much like this viral video, but exactly like, because I shot this and I have some bonus footage from that day that we're going to add stuff to together. Hey, I'm Albert Bosason. I'm the co-instructor of the Curious Refuge AI animation course, created in partnership with Storybook Studios, where I am sitting right now in the dark, late at night. Today, we'll work with some real footage, paint in our VFX elements using AI, and then animate those using the image-to-video tool Kling AI. After that, you'll meet Robert, who's not just an excellent cowboy, but also an award-winning filmmaker and After Effects wizard.
And I'll show you how to bring your AI elements seamlessly back into your footage.
So let's jump right in and bring our footage into After Effects, just a clean After Effects project. Drag your footage over here, and let's take a look at our river shot. So I want to place a horse drinking water from the river right about here that then slowly looks up as the cowboy approaches. Now, you notice how we've already got some basic color correction, even grading on this shot. It's kind of cool. There's a lot of contrast in it. And it's up to you how you do that before you start this process, but make sure that your footage is no longer flat, let alone like any log footage or anything, because you can't prompt AI to do that. And even if you were to kind of replicate the look, there's almost no leeway in changing colors or editing your AI element color-wise at all, because it's pretty compressed. So unlike most other VFX workflows, you're going to want to be as close to your final look as possible before you start this process. Also notice how the footage is nice and sharp. This whole area where we want to place our horse is in focus. And most importantly, throughout the shot, the lighting does not change. So we shot this with a mirrorless Canon camera and had it all set to manual. Shutter speed, aperture, ISO, there's nothing automatic changing the light or settings during the shot. If your shot does have that, you'll have a basically impossible time adding AI elements because those can only be integrated if nothing in the lighting changes. Now, you may also just be shooting on a smartphone. That's absolutely no problem. There are awesome apps that let you shoot manually in very high quality. On iPhones, for example, you can get Final Cut Camera for free, or something like Filmic Pro, which gives you really beautiful footage on newer smartphones. Next, we want to set the in and out points of our footage. So why don't we just start here? Watch our cowboy, and he stands there. We're only going to get about 5 seconds of AI anyway, so let's give us a little more than 5, just so we have space. Set the out point, and then drag it into a new composition down here. Now, this is 4K footage. Our AI is not going to be 4K, but it's going to be decent. And if we only add AI to a part of it, we can definitely get a really, really high resolution final result anyway. So that's absolutely no problem working in professional resolutions. Next, down here, we want to go to the first frame of our actual composition and save this frame by going up here, Composition, Save Frame As, File, Output Module Photoshop is fine, and just select where you want it output. You can leave the name as is because it's a helpful reminder which frame exactly this was. And then remember to hit Render. It's going to be real quick because it's only exporting a single frame. If you do want to be even quicker with this process, though, I can recommend actually getting the free Video Copilot FX console add-on. It's a couple years old, but it makes saving PNGs from your still frames very, very easy. So with that installed, all I would have had to do is hit Control Space. This little window opens up. I can click this button, save to PNG, JPEG, or just copy to clipboard. Incredibly powerful. So thanks Video Copilot for that. Next, open your exported frame in Photoshop. And here it is. And now is where it gets kind of dumb and really, really fun because we can use our very best Microsoft Paint skills here. So I'm going to create a new layer and pick the color I want for the horse. And I'm thinking we could put a really beautiful, like kind of a gray white stallion in there, like a wild horse. And what we have to do, which is very important in VFX in general, is get the size right. So I'm going to have to judge just how far Robert is away from the horse. I think a horse would probably go, like if it were standing next to him, would probably be about this tall, like that's where its head would be. So I'm guessing the horse might be around here. Let's pick a color for the horse. Not completely white, but maybe like kind of a gray here. And we're gonna paint the shoulder of the horse here. So remember, we want the horse to be drinking from the river. So like literally just, oh, there's like rocks there. Okay, that doesn't matter. That's okay. And here's one foot in the water, another foot in the water, another hoof. And it's kind of standing there. Like you can be so rough with this. I'm not even kidding. Like just really don't even try. Gorgeous. Now that is a horse. And now that we've done that, we're going to use the lasso select tool and really roughly select the area around our horse. Really don't be too careful, because by giving it a little bit more space, it can correct for any like proportional issues that we might have had with the horse, right? Like obviously I didn't get this right. This looks like a cave painting. So Photoshop is going to need some space to do it. And then we hit generative fill and enter our prompt. So I want a spotted white horse drinking water from a river, and just to really help it with the pose, hoofs in the water, like it should be standing in the water, and head down to drink. So let's see what it gives us. And there we go. You can see it really did understand what we wanted. So this is pretty much this is what was in my mind, right? I'm such an artist, but I just can't express myself with these primitive tools. And it really understood. There are some beautiful horses here. Now, don't get too attached to any of these options because, the details, if you really zoom in, it's not super realistic. It's still kind of messed up in the face and doesn't fit perfectly into the lighting. We're going to fix that in the next step. But for now, just pick the one that's closest to what you were envisioning, and I think that's this number 2 here. What we do now is we're going to crop closer to that area so we get more detail in our AI generation. Let's do that. And what's important with this cropping is that you pick an aspect ratio that specifically Stable Diffusion XL likes. So Stable Diffusion XL is the AI model that we're going to use to improve the quality of this horse. And it likes some very specific resolutions. You just need to remember them. You get used to them. And one of those is this super wide one, but we want a little less, namely 1344 by 768. That's pretty much full HD or 16:9 aspect ratio specifically. So we hit done to crop. Make sure delete cropped pixels is not selected, but don't worry too much if it is. We're going to undo it in just a second. Now that we've done that, we hit export, quick export as PNG. When working with this workflow, I like to keep all my stuff really structured and sorted, so I make a new folder usually that I call 2_SD because it's an image that I'm sending to Stable Diffusion. Save. And now we're going to do AI inpainting. The cool thing is this is going to happen locally on my computer in something called the Forge Web UI. So it's a really cool way and a totally free way to do this if you happen to have an NVIDIA GPU with medium to high power. If you don't, you can use one of many online services such as Run Diffusion, for example, to use a UI called the Auto 1111 UI, which is essentially identical. Once Forge Web UI is open, you're going to have a ton of settings here, buttons, numbers, and stuff, but do not worry, we're only going to use a small handful of important ones, like 3 different settings here. So just follow along and you will be fine. If you are curious about what this UI can do aside from this specific tutorial, there are absolute tons of tutorials available here on YouTube, also by me, that will help you get started installing this and then using this Forge or Auto 1111 Web UI. So I've left some links for you in the description below, and you can have a bunch of fun there. But for now, just follow along. Because we're changing an existing image, we can leave text to image and go to image to image, this tab over here. And immediately you'll see this box here where we can upload our frame that we just exported from Photoshop. Excellent. And next we click to inpaint because we want to inpaint this horse. We don't want to change everything because it should still, be able to be integrated into our final footage. Instead, we're going to get this paintbrush here. Let's make it a little smaller, and we're going to select our horse. Also, just leave some space around it, just a little bit of buffer so that the AI has some space to think. And we just select our lovely horse here. Excellent. And now we are going to go up here. We already have the XL selected because we're using a Stable Diffusion XL model. And now we can pick our specific checkpoint, which is version of the model. And for more realistic cinematic stuff, I like using the Juggernaut XL, in this case, version 11 model, because it's just very good at replicating a realistic but also cinematic high quality style. Next, simple, you know this, we enter our prompt. And because I've already worked in this specific project, I've actually figured out a template that works for the look of this project. Yours might be different, but mine goes a little something like this. Low contrast cinematic movie still of a XX, that's where I describe what I want to see, on a cloudy day, because that's how we shot, and the lighting will be matched. We also have a negative prompt where we enter what we don't like, and in this project, it's saturation, lush greenery, sunlight, because I kept getting like green bushes, which I didn't want to see. So I put that in here. Excellent. So now that we've entered that, we describe our horse, spotted white horse drinking water from a river. That should be plenty. Now we scroll down and we can leave all this stuff as is. I don't need to explain all this. You want to inpaint what's masked, leave everything the same as it is. Of course, mask content, original, because we wanted to actually see the horse behind there. Inpaint area, hold picture. And we just need to change the width and height to the numbers I told you earlier. So 1344 by 768. That way it keeps the aspect ratio of the whole image. Let's give it 4 options. I want to see a couple options. And one final thing, the denoising strength. This is basically a gauge of how close it should stick to what was there originally. Because I like the pose of the horse, I only want to change some details. I'm going to turn this number way down to, let's try 0.3. And now, the other settings should be good. Let's generate and see what it gives us. And there are our horses. You see, we have a couple different options, just with some added detail. If we compare that to the original in Photoshop, it looks kind of fake. These have more correct proportions. This one even has a little vein in the nose, so I really appreciate this higher level of detail. But actually, let's give it a little bit more power. 0.5, just to really see where it can get us. And let's add sharp, focused to the prompt, and blurry to the negative prompt. That's giving us much more detail. You can really see the water detail where it's sipping from. That's really cool. I also really like the water detail here. And what's extra cool, if we actually like one of these generations a little more, but still want to change some stuff, all we need to do is have it selected here, and then click this little paint icon here, and it'll send it back to our inpaint. And then we can go back in and change more details how we want. But I think for now, I'm happy. So we're going to right-click and save our image. This is Kling AI, my current personal favorite image-to-video tool, especially in the more live-action, real style of animation. So all we have to do is go to AI videos, then to frames, click here, and upload our horse. And then we prompt what we want to see as motion. So the most important part of the video prompting is that the camera must not move. It has to be as static as possible because we want to bring this footage back into our real footage. So that's the first thing we're going to prompt. It's a little silly, but we prompt static, still, camera. And then we just kind of hope that actually happens. It usually does. And now what we want to see. The horse drinks water from the river, then looks up. So what might happen, what I'm seeing now is that Robert is still visible as a person in the shot. Kling loves seeing people in shots, and he might be animated into the shot, like he might walk or something. But because we've left enough space in our crop, that probably shouldn't be a problem because then we can just mask out the horse and no harm is done. Next, we check the settings. A lot of this stuff looks cool, like motion brush, but it's not available for Kling 1.6, which is the model I'm after because the quality is incredible. So we're going to have to stick to the basic settings. We do professional mode. Duration, 5 seconds is perfectly fine. And generating count, let's turn that up to 2 just so we get 2 different options. But we don't have to exaggerate and go for 4. We can adjust later. And now we hit generate, and this takes a couple minutes. And here we go. Our first horse animations are done. And we see the horse is drinking water from the river. It's moving its tail. The camera's a little shaky. I don't love that. That's going to give Robert a hard time. The river's kind of fast, but I think it's moving the right direction. So let's check After Effects. Yeah, it's fine. It's actually guessing, it guessed the speed of the river quite well. But the horse is not really looking up until the very end. So I wanted to kind of stop drinking and look up at Robert. Second option, pretty much what I wanted. It's moving the river the wrong way in the background because you see, of course, both sides were moving the same way. But the camera's not moving. So let's remember this and adjust our prompt a little bit. River for a short moment and to the front. River, water moves to the right. Let's see if that works. I'm not sure. Directions are not a strong suit of AI. And let's do static, very still camera. You know, if you've ever prompted an AI, you'll know it's kind of alchemy. My colleague Toby today, he generated these shots over here. And he wanted just a silent hug, but this man kept talking. And you see the prompt was sad men hugging. The solution was literally silent, sad men hugging silently. So let's run this new attempt. Here we go. Let's see what happens. Drinking, and then it looks up and to the front. Very good. It still didn't get the water direction right. I don't love that. The water's a little too wild here. Generally, I enjoy that first one. So let's remember that one. Let's try slow river. Here we go. Doesn't really turn how I want. Okay. I like this latest one the best. The water's still going the wrong way, but with some masking tricks, I think Robert can fix that. And it's not my problem. And the tail actually stays consistent. And I like the reaction of the horse. It's a wild horse, you know. It doesn't like Robert being there. So it's a little irritated and kind of takes a break to check him out. So let's download that without the watermark, of course, because we don't want the Kling AI logo in there, and send it off to Robert.
Okay, let's look at the After Effects file Albert sent me. And, okay, it's river. It's this one. And I'll double click the river composition. Okay, we see the background here. Now it's time to look at the horse. I didn't see it, so I'm excited. Let's drag that into the project layer and double click it. Oh, okay. It's a horse. It's a different color, but okay. We'll take what we get. I like the movement. And it has some kind of back pain. What is the water doing? I'll ignore that for now. Back into the composition, and I'll drag the horse layer on top of the background. So now, you see, it's somewhere, and probably way too big. So the first thing we'll do is select our horse layer and hit T for opacity. I don't know. And we'll drag that down to about 50% so we can see through the horse layer, and we can also see the background, so we can align it. What we can do now is either click, say, make sure this layer is selected. Click into the viewer and then just roughly position the layer. You can see here, there's this stone. This will be my orientation. The stone is over here. So I'll just go back to 50% opacity and then place it on top of the other stone. If I zoom in, I can see this is not perfect. I can now use my left and right arrow keys to adjust that. Down, 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 down. And this is close to perfect. It still gives us a little bit of this. Because the AI sometimes stretches the image, select your layer, hit S, hit the S key for scale, right? And now you can go up and down with the scale to adjust so it fits better. So my problem right now is that this horizon line doesn't line up. So that is fine. I can go back to by hitting T to the opacity thing and then just scrub through it so I can see, oh, it's my horse layer is probably a little bit smaller now than the original. So I go back into the scale factor and type in maybe 105. Try to realign it. Okay. By the way, if you hold shift and hit S or T or any other property, they will just show up next to each other, which is pretty handy. If your AI image, because sometimes this happens, right, is distorted by the AI, it's maybe like this, and you have to fix it. You just have to click this little icon, which is the constraint proportions chain, and then you can manipulate your X and Y scale individually. So we're done with aligning. Let's bring our opacity back up to 100%. The horse sits perfectly in frame. Great. But we have these ugly edges. We want to get rid of them. So what do? We create a mask. Right. So now, how do we do this? There are a couple of options. For this, I'd say let's take this pen tool, which is also the G on the keyboard, and create a little mask around the horse. Let's see where the horse moves, because we don't need all of that water. We want to keep as much of the original footage as we can, but we also want to keep these beautiful reflections that the AI did, or shadows of the horse. So let's see where the horse moves. So the maximum horse height will be like this. Keep your horse selected down here. And now let's draw a little mask around the horse like so. Keep the reflections. Maybe hide your mask. So something like this will do. Here. Okay, so now we have this mask. Let's go back. Let's see if the horse is all included. If it doesn't go out of the mask, yes. We can play it back. Let's see how this looks. Right. I can still see the edges over here. What do you do about that? You select the horse layer and hit M twice. MM. So you can see all the mask properties. Now, there's this mask feather option, which will just drag up to, quite drastically. So you can see what this does. It just fezzles. It fezzles out the edges. Make sure to not feather out too much of the details, otherwise the horse will disappear. And we don't want that. So let's turn on the background again. If you want to deselect your layer, you just have to click somewhere outside of the layer stack, like this. And we can play back. Looks like this. Huh. See? Here our feather is too much. So we'll just turn that back a little bit so we can still see the horse. We can adjust our mask so that doesn't happen that much. So I want to keep my feather at around 60. Okay, let's put it back again. Interesting. That looks pretty good. One last thing we need to do, actually two things. One is, as you can see here, right? If you zoom in, our initial camera shot is pretty steady, but it's not perfectly steady. So you can see this thing wiggling back and forth and our horse being super static. So what do? We have to motion track this. We want to track the motion of our background, which we'll do like so. We'll right click somewhere in this field, right, to create a new null object. This, hit enter and rename the null object to tracker. Tracker. Then with this selected, with the background layer selected, we go to hit track motion, which opens the layer panel, which is just our background. So don't worry if the horse is gone for now. Now we just have to figure out a good spot to track our footage. Say stones are very, very good for this because they're high contrast and that our computer doesn't have a hard time to recognize a pattern or follow a pattern. Okay, if you found your spot, let's say this is good enough for this, you will have to edit the target. This is where our tracking data goes. So select tracker 1, the null object that we just created. Hit OK, and now just hit analyze. So it wiggles and yeah, that worked out perfectly. See, it tracks to our footage. Now all we have to do is hit apply, X and Y, hit OK, and now it just opens the composition panel again. But this is so, and reveals all of this tracking data in our background, but we don't need that because look at that. If you select the tracker layer and hit U, you can see all the position keyframes have been applied to this little rectangle as well. And it wiggles just like our footage. So now we can take our horse layer, take this little thingy here, which is called the pick whip, and drag it over the tracker. That applies the motion of the tracker to our horse. So now what you can see here, it moves the same way as the footage. So still has some little inconsistencies, but we don't see that in the final product. If we zoom out, well, that's good enough for us. At least for me. Let's see what Albert thinks. Our generated footage is a little bit darker than our background. So to fix this, you select your horse layer, go to your effects, and you can look for curves. Here. I'll do that with the control spacebar command that Albert showed you before, and hit enter. There we have some curves. Now we can do some slight shadow adjustments to maybe not manipulate the highlights and the midtones. And now this is way better. We just lifted the shadows a little bit, give it a little boost. So this is still a little bit crunchy, so I lift the shadow values just a little bit more. Yeah, I'm okay with that. So this helps the integration, especially around the edges. We can see that here. And also what I can see here is this looks, when zoomed in, looks a little bit sharper than what the AI gave us. So let's add another effect, which is called sharpen. And now we can just drag this amount up. This is what every phone does, right? You see, if you go to extremes, it'll just show the compression, but we can do a little bit. Just go 20 or something. This is even too much. Just go, this is 0. Can sharpen it a little bit to match the footage. For us, it's about 18. Okay, cool. Now we can play that back and see if we like it. That's pretty good. I still don't like that the river is flowing backwards. So this is not, if you want, this is a pretty good shot, pretty convincing. You can export this as is, but I want to try something. Let's cut out this horse by using the roto brush. It's over here. You double click your layer, you paint in your horse. So it recognizes the limbs and the tail. Okay, This requires a little bit of tomfoolery to get right, but I'll be back. I promise. So this is my finished horse cutout. As you can see, horse is cut out. I like it. So how does that look like here? Okay, it's just a little extra. We don't see the shadows. I just want to add them back into the scene. I'll just duplicate our horse layer and remove the effect. So now we have our reflections back. I will take a mask. I'll just make a mask around the section with the rectangle tool. Just around our reflection area. Do the same thing. Hit then feather everything around it. Maybe move the mask a little bit. If you select the mask over here, you can just move the mask. Okay, so now this is the regular water. Okay, it kind of does a similar thing. It's just turbulence that happens in between these islands. Okay, I'll take it.
And here's our final result. This process is so fun once you get the hang of it. And it costs practically nothing to add really cool VFX elements to your live action footage with AI. I hope you liked this tutorial, and if you liked my teaching style in general, be sure to check out the Curious Refuge AI animation course that our team at Storybook Studios co-created. We would love to have you in the program, where you can directly interact with me and our co-instructors and learn from all of us and the Curious Refuge community. For more free info on the latest AI tools and creative workflows, be sure to leave a like on this video and subscribe to this channel. Thank you so much.